How dare you hit 35 and not be married and not have children? If you're blonde and pretty, then you're not very smart. There are many ways that you can be a successful woman, and we shouldn't help society box us in. Get into a room and come out of the room smarter than when you came in. If you know how to get out of the box, then you get out of the box. It's a great question, and it changes kind of throughout my career. It was overwhelming at the beginning. I'm not going to lie and say, oh, it's always been smooth sailing. I had managers, especially when I was really young, and I found myself in those rooms quite early, that empower me to actually like hold my own and make my own choices. Now, at the time, it almost felt like a punishment because I was like, well, I'm struggling and I need you to help me. But in hindsight, in kind of like a longer sort of career time span, it really became something that empowered me. And having empowerment and agency from the very beginning to understand where your boundaries are was really helpful. There have been moments that, they knock your confidence down. I remember very early on, I was in a room. A lot of the people there were more senior, more technical, and I had to actually redesign the way they were working. So you're basically kind of a young, a couple of years, if that's into your career, and you're telling them how to work more efficiently. Obviously, you have the advantage of being the outside observant, but at the same time, didn't always go down very well. So what they used to do is that they used to give me nicknames, and that was kind of meant to like make me a bit smaller. And with the blonde hair, Blondie was an easy one, or little lady, etc., etc. So I think to me that was a bit of the turning point of, okay, this can go either way. It can either go that I just box myself in there and not get my point across, or it can get to the point where I actually understand to set up my own boundaries. And that's what I did. And again, I was empowered by a great manager at the time. She listened to me. She told me what to do in the sense of, I have your back, but she didn't step in. I think as you grow into your career, as you go into your professional self, you become a little bit more confident in terms of how to manage the room and your knowledge as well. When you're at the beginning, when you're very junior, you're still building the knowledge. And I think you learn how to use the room at your advantage. A lot of the time, when you are kind of boxed up in a place because you're too young, too female, it comes from two places. From a place of misunderstanding, because culture used to be different and, workplaces used to look differently. And that's where you can really act and help people understand, the journey that you're on, and actually what you know, what you don't know, and use it as a learning opportunity for yourself and for others. And a lot of the people that you meet in this room are actually quite knowledgeable. So they can become a source of knowledge for you because you get better at your job, better at understanding, their side, the technical side or whatever. Or they can use it to box you up because they don't want to understand you. And at that point, to me, it's not even a losing battle. It's not worth your energy. Let them misinterpret who you are. And then when you're coming into making a decision, then make the best decision for yourself. As long as you don't box yourself up. If anybody else is not making the effort to understand you and to actually understand that even as a young professional female, you're a complex human being, you have studied, you've learned, etc., etc., then don't waste your energy. I used to waste a lot of energy at the beginning, like insisting that everybody had to understand that I knew this and I knew that. So much wasted energy. Focus on yourself, focus on the things that you can influence. It's a matter of curiosity at the very beginning. Coming out of university, you've for a long time you're studying, and you kind of made feel like, especially if you're doing well in your academic years, that you know a lot, and then all of a sudden you get into the workspace and you realize that you don't. So there is an element of humility of, I'm here, I'm new. When you're starting your career, help me understand how to help you. And then there is an element of curiosity. I've always believed in this kind of continuous learning. So you keep learning, you keep studying, whether it's through getting to know people or it's through going to courses or you're reading. Now everything is at the tip of a finger. You have podcasts, you have audiobooks, you have a lot that you can engage with. So it was a mix of curiosity and humility. And then progressively it was building up what my skill set was and what I could bring to the table. And being progressively a little bit more confident in that. So something that one of my old bosses suggested, and I still do kind of over 10 years in, is to map your skills and then score yourself against them. It helps you know where your gaps are, but it helps you also understand your progression, and actually that you are, improving and bettering yourself at this and that and that. And then if you have a gap, then you can ask yourself how you fill it. The other thing was to develop the ability to deliver for them. So with technical teams and with kind of being on the brink between business and technical, you need to speak both languages. And actually you need to be the person that is solving problems rather than creating them, because that kind of heightens the trust, and people actually understand that you are doing something in their favor, not just like barking orders. So it's this ability to translate and to speak both languages and help the business understand what the technical needs are, and the technical team understand actually how to kind of carry forward the business outcomes. So it's developing this, and it takes a while. It's not something that is sort of innate to anyone, but it's putting yourself in a position where you're curious, you can learn, but also you're humble enough to admit what you don't know at the beginning. I don't think, and I definitely don't consider myself the finished product. It would be quite boring at this age. I mean, you really want to continue to improve yourself and get to know yourself. But I think it's one of the toughest one to deal with as a woman. There is the tendency of boxing you into something that is easier to understand. So if you're blonde and pretty, then you're not very smart. Or if you're this, then you're not that. And it almost feels to me like that is society kind of enabling itself to understand complex creatures better. So every human has their own complexities, but then you're expected to behave a way. And, people can understand that. They can understand that you are this and not bother looking at all of the rest of the stuff that is going on with you. So for me, it was very important to start rejecting the box, and rejecting the mold. And I was quite lucky that I started collaborating with the Women in Business Network in my previous company quite early on. And we had two things that really made us and help us reflect on this. One was we did a lot of work on core values. So what are your core values? What are the 3-4 things that really, like, at your core, you're not going to compromise on? And that gives you a solid ground. And so as you rise and you fall and you kind of like jump and you crash, because we all do it, then that gives you that solid ground that you can always come back to. And then the other thing, and that's what I really got quite passionate about, and I still am, is to look at diversity within gender. At the very beginning, when I was listening to webinars and listening to this kind of like podcast or whatever it was, they were describing this kind of like relatively soft-spoken woman, and she wouldn't speak up in a meeting, or she had to be called out if she had to make a point. She was very intelligent, she had things to say, but she wasn't confident enough to say them, or she would sit in the back of the room. And I did not recognize myself in that. I almost felt like I was wrong as a woman because I didn't fit that particular mold. So I realized that we were putting molds on ourselves and we were boxing ourselves up. So we started really having frank discussion of, and there are many ways that you can be a successful woman, and we shouldn't help society box us in. I am not particularly soft-spoken. I don't know how to be. I'm learning to be, more patient at times, but I do not sit in the back of the room. I am, tall, blonde, you can't really miss me. So why would I act in a way that is completely against my character and just make myself smaller for the benefit of someone else? It takes a while to get there, and it wasn't easy at the beginning. I think having a network of people around you that supports you, that helps you with that sometimes is going to mirror yourself back at you. These people that you can trust and you can ask questions, and sometimes seeing yourself through their eyes rather than yours. It's very useful. And that progressively then helps develop a leadership style. In my case, it's a style that wants to empower other people to make their own decision. While sometimes you have to lead from the front and kind of be the first one that comes in. I have a very strong tendency of wanting to fix everybody else's problem. Not a great idea. I found out kind of the hard way. So you have to empower people and almost lead from the back and make sure that, yes, people know that they are covered, that you have their backs, but at the same time, you give them agency to fix their own problem. And then it's about not losing what makes you you. So the extroverted, in my case, the being very open with people, they're not really wanting to hide sides of me. within the remit of appropriateness, obviously at work, but the idea of, sharing my thoughts, sharing who I am, it's progressively becoming a bit more confident in that. The third aspect, and it's very much the one that I'm still working on, is vulnerability. You're very much, as a woman, you're asked to always be strong, to always kind of put up a brave face. Now, that's the bit that I really struggle with, because showing people that you are competent, etc., it's easy. Showing people that you are vulnerable, not as easy. So that's a piece of work that I'm still very much doing. If anything, is the next thing that I want to work on. And again, you have your network and the people that you trust kind of calling you out and helping you with that. And the last part for me is to look up at people that you admire. It doesn't really matter, men or women. See how they do it, ask questions, understand what got them to a certain place or to make a certain decision, and learn from them. One of the great privileges of my job is that I am in room with people that are very senior, they're very smart, they've done amazing for themselves, all in a different way, and a lot of people are open to mentoring and to giving you advice, so make the best of that. Imposter syndrome is one of those that it's never gonna go away, but we are lucky because we have a name for it now. For me, there was a couple of massive turning points. One, it happened quite early in my career, was the global CEO of the company that I was working with at the time. And to any standard, this incredibly successful man very openly talked about it in a webinar. And he was saying, look, it happens to me. Sometimes I'm sitting at a table, I look around and, world leaders or incredible entrepreneurs, and I'm like, what am I doing here? And so knowing that it happens to everyone, I think that helps. But it doesn't help in solving when it happens to you. So that's the second step that you have to put in. First of all, give it a name, recognize it and know that it's something that is common. I think that's helpful. But then how do you deal with it? Sometimes it's very disempowering to feel like you don't belong. And that's where you really have to put in the work and remind yourself that no matter where you are in your career, you have a right to be there. You were chosen to be in that job. You were chosen to be in that room. So remind yourself that there is a reason why you're there. Think of what you're actually bringing to the table. And sometimes it's something very small. You might have one bit of knowledge that is helpful, but then the rest of, the room or the table knows a lot more. And sometimes you're actually carrying the project or you're carrying the knowledge and everybody else is sort of seeking your help to deliver it. It's not always going to be the same. You're not always going to be 100% the most important person in the room. More often than not, none of us are. But what do you bring to the table? I think ask that question. And if you are unsure, then ask someone with you. How can I help? How can I support? What is that piece of my knowledge of my professional life that can actually help, deliver this project or get this done? And that's where then a little bit of confidence progressively has to build. I think one of the key factors to me for success, irrespectively of how we define success, is to have a little bit of something within that carries you. Yes, you can, look for other people for feedback and to just build you up. But if you're not building yourself up at the beginning, there's really nowhere that can go. This being said, it happens a lot. I think you have to have the ability to kind of go through it and then move past it. It's never going to not happen. Especially, as you get more senior. And I remember the first time I walked into a boardroom supporting my current boss. I mean, you had people there that had incredible careers. And I was looking around and I was like, oh, wow, it's a great privilege to be here. But what am I doing in this room? And then, everybody's human. Progressively, you start chatting and you lose it as a learning opportunity. You get from them actually as much as you can, because they can be advisors, they can be mentors, they can be teachers. So always put yourself in a position where you're there to learn and not to just kind of knock yourself down. Well, first of all, I haven't always turned them around. And that's something that we all have to just tell ourselves and admit. You can only control how you feel and what you do. You can never really control how other people react to you. And it took me a very long time to make peace with this, because again, I'm a fixer by nature. So I just wanted to fix everything and just making sure that everybody understood that I exactly knew this or knew that, or I was this or I was that. Again, it's so much energy for something that you cannot control. So I think accepting that, and it's still very much a journey of acceptance. The other thing, and again, it's hard at the beginning, and it gets easier as you become more senior, more confident, and you know yourself more, is the ability to read the room. There are some rooms that is worth fighting for, and some others and it's not. And you have to read the situation, because it's not always who speaks last or whoever shouts the loudest that is actually making the smart point. And again, at the beginning, you tend, or at least I tended to want to be the one that got the last word in, because I thought that that's how you demonstrate that you're smarter and therefore you're breaking the stereotype. But that's not always the case. And I actually have to thank my current boss, because he's incredible in this ability to read the room, to listen, to understand, not to reply, and actually to carry the power of silence sometimes, not being the one who shouts the loudest, but the one who understanding the situation and using it in a strategic way. He teaches me to get into a room and come out of the room smarter than what you came in, because that's how you beat the stereotypes. That's how you actually are breaking down barriers. If you get in and you're getting things from other that is making you better, smarter, more strategic. Now, there are times where this works really well, and there are times where you have to take a little bit more sort of a stand. It depends on your comfort level as well, and when your boundaries are. Most of the time, to me, it's better to take a step back, let things play out, and then demonstrate, that you are knowledgeable, you know this thing, you are this or you're that at the right time. There are occasions where it's better to just openly respond to it. So I've been in both situations, and thankfully I'm quite outspoken. So when you're really in a place where people boxing you up is making you uncomfortable, then speak up and say, look, this is your perception of me. I understand that it's making it easier for you to understand me, but this is not me. And I'm not going to let you kind of put myself in that corner. And whether it's sort of a mental exercise or you're saying it out loud, again, it depends on the context. But as we were saying before, it's easier for people to think you are less than what you are and to box you up. And it's like, oh, yeah, I can understand you because you are this. You are a woman, you are in tech, but you're pretty, so you must have, slept your way to the top, or you must not understand how an actual, network works, or you must not have technical knowledge. Therefore, I can manage you this way. Don't let them. And especially don't let yourself do that. Somebody's always going to try. If you know how to get out of the box, then you get out of the box, and they can stay in their smaller, sort of less complex world if that's what serves them better. Too young for the boardroom and too old for children. It's a very interesting one. And it's a very recent discovery, I think. When you start your career, your early 20s, you're looking to grow and to learn, and you're not really asking yourself this kind of question. Now you get as a senior woman in your mid-30s, and things start to turn a little bit and get more towards that side. From a career perspective, you're still young, and sometimes you are told that you're too young for certain things. And boardrooms are their own kind of particular place, because you are advising companies, you are meant to have a certain level of not just knowledge, but buckles in your belt. And those buckles come with years of, I've been doing this for 20 years, that for 30 years, etc., etc. It's not just experience in the sense of diversity of experience, but it's experience in the sense of longevity and length of time, which I completely understand in certain cases. But if you're never given a chance to start, then you're never kind of building that knowledge yourself. Too young for the boardroom is something that I can still deal with, in the sense of I don't see myself as the finished product, and I will continue to push to learn and to progressively try and get myself into those more senior seats or board seats, etc. As women, we live this tension of you're too young for certain things, and yet, as soon as you hit 35, you're very much too old for others. Like, how dare you hit 35 and not be married and not have children, and again, not fit the mold that society has given us. And then things like perimenopause start being thrown around, and all of a sudden, it's 1 year difference. Even if you think of the boxes on the surveys, it's 1 year of difference, and you go from being a completely viable, sort of young woman to being like, oh, well, we're just might just put you on the shelf and leave you there. It's complete nonsense, and we all know it. And I think we live in this very interesting time where a lot of incredible women before me have been fighting to break these stereotypes. But society as a whole is still kind of pushing us down in that sense. I think it's one of the most difficult things to deal with on a daily basis. It's the constant tension of, on the one hand, reminding yourself that you have a right to be in certain rooms and you have a right to be there, and on the other hand, kind of not putting yourself down because your path hasn't been sort of the standard path that a lot of other people have chosen to take. And then it's looking at different examples, and it's accepting that things are happening in life at different times for different people, and not comparing yourself to others. It's very hard. Especially when, you know, maybe everybody around you is going in a certain direction and you're still not quite there. We're pack animals in a way. So if all of your friends, if all of your acquaintances are going in a certain direction, sometimes you almost feel left behind. But it's what you do with that. How much pressure do you put on yourself because it's what you want and it's what you want to achieve, etc. But how much pressure are you letting society put on you because you haven't exactly followed the path that it was prescribed by whoever, whenever. It is a struggle and it gets frustrating, and it's one of the daily fights of you're constantly fending off society's sort of mold on you on both sides. So on the too young on the one side, on the too old for the other, and you're constantly fighting it. So it can get a bit draining. I think one of the useful things is having people that you can trust and you can share this stuff with. Don't carry the burden by yourself. If you think that, you know, society has been telling you that 35 is too old for children, etc., then talk to your friends. Go look for example of people that have had a different path, and sort of, you know, be confident that if that's what you want, then you'll find a way to make it happen. And equally, when you're told that you are too young for a role, then look at your skills, look at your experience, and keep trying. If it's a no the first time, it might be a yes the second time. And if again you're putting in a position where you're uncomfortable and you don't think like you're getting what you want, then find somewhere else, find another room. I'm not sure whether it's workplaces that are putting the mold in, or it's kind of society as a whole, and as I said, ourselves first, that are kind of, you know, trying to say, oh, this is the role that we're assigned to and you have to accept it, or we're going to accept it. I think workplaces can do a lot in terms of the knowledge and the conversation. One of the reasons why I am relatively confident about, you know, who I am and being in a senior role is because I, from very early on, had a network of women that were more senior than me, more experienced. They were helping us understand where the boundaries were and reflecting on ourselves and reflecting on the workplace as a whole. So I almost think we have a duty of sort of continuing this mentoring and this knowledge sharing. And it, for me, it came from men as well as women. So having allies, having men who are asking the right questions rather than just accepting how things have always been. Sometimes you're looking up at a mentor to get business knowledge or to get specific technical knowledge, and in that sense it's great that whoever has the knowledge has the time and the patience to impart it on you. But sometimes you do need to look up and see somebody that looks like you and that have gone through the challenges that you've gone through, and they've come out the other side successful. For me, it was incredibly important, and I'm thinking about one specific person. She is an incredible professional, an incredible woman, very successful, but also like me, she is blonde and she loves clothes and she loves fashion, and she carried herself with this confidence, and she was never kind of like putting herself down or letting herself be smaller because of who she was. And so observing her and having her kind of in my corner as I was growing as a professional was incredibly important, because it showed me that you can be more than one thing at once. If you're young and a female equally, and you're struggling to find your voice, for me it's three things. As we said, look up, look inwards, and look around you. Look up because you'll see people that look like you, that have gone through what you've gone through. If you can't find a role model in your immediate circle, then look a little wider, because I'm sure there is somebody out there that is talking about a challenge that you've gone through, and it's suggesting how they overcome it. and maybe there's something that you can get from there. So look up. On some challenges, I have a very strong preference of having female mentors because I think they understand more, but on other challenges equally, I've had amazing men mentors, and they have been incredible advocates of me, of kind of like women in general. So don't limit yourself to, oh, I absolutely need to have a woman mentor because I'll be the only one who will understand that, or I absolutely need this mentor to look like this. No, just let it happen. Sometimes it's more natural than what people think. Look inwards. That's challenging. The way I see it, you're never a finished product. You're always in development, and there's always a chance to improve yourself, to improve your skills, and to understand more of yourself. Now, if you'd asked me 10 years ago, this was not very clear to me. When you're fresh out of university, when you're starting a new job, you tend to look everywhere else but inwards because you want to get knowledge and you want to get to know people, and you're told, oh, you have to build a network and become relevant here, become relevant there. It's when you start looking inwards that there is a massive shift. And I think that comes with age a little bit as well. I'm going back again to core values because those are really important. So who are you at your core? And then look around you. There are people that will take the time to get to know you and that will carry you when you cannot carry yourself, and you will carry them when they cannot carry themselves. Find a couple of people that can do this for you and that will help you mirror yourself back to you. I call them my mirror friends, and they know who they are. But sometimes seeing yourself through their eyes is challenging but really important. And then you'll find yourself with a network of people that are similar age, that are going through the same things together. So you open up about them, you discuss what their thoughts are, and again, you're progressively making yourself smarter just as a byproduct of having this conversation. You asked me before about leadership styles. One of the discussions that I'm currently having with this sort of small network of my female and male friends, kind of similar age, similar positions in tech companies, is how do we develop our leadership style in a different way than the ones that we've seen successful in the past. And what does success mean for us? Success at the time and still now, it's money and it's influence and it's power. Does that really fit what we want? Is working 60 hours a week our definition of success? Or what do we bring as sort of the next generation of leadership within certain companies that could actually be different? And that's where your peers are incredibly useful. If you don't have the possibility to have this network kind of with your friends and your colleagues physically, online has become an incredible place where you can chat to somebody on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and actually get something going for yourself in terms of having peers and having this discussion. And the last bit, after you've looked anywhere that you needed to look, is fight the box. Don't let anybody put you in a box, and don't help them put you in. And don't put yourself in. Sometimes it's easier to just revert back to the box, because the box is comfortable for us as well. You don't have to challenge yourself. You don't have to understand yourself a bit more. You just have to accept a mold that society puts on you. It's very relaxing at times. You really don't have to have this constant sort of asking and pushing and fighting. But to me, for every young woman or girl, it's the worst thing you can do. You love science and you love pink. Go to the science fair dressed in pink and wearing a tiara. There's nothing wrong with being more than one thing at the same time. So that would be kind of my last piece of advice is fight it. Don't put yourself in. Break the box wall, break the mold, break everything that you can break. And sometimes you have to raise your voice. Sometimes you have to be calm and let things play out. But don't help anybody box you in a corner that doesn't belong to you.